Raone Novaro. By the late 1920s, Raone Novaro was riding high as one of MGM's biggest stars. His role in Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, made him a household name, and according to some reports, one of the highest-paid actors of the silent era. Around 1928, Novaro commissioned a striking Spanish Revival mansion in Laurel Canyon, designed by Lloyd Wright, the son of Frank Lloyd Wright. The home, later dubbed the Novaro Residence, became a symbol of early Hollywood glamour perched in the hills above Los Angeles. But Hollywood's spotlight doesn't linger forever. As sound films took over, Novaro's career began a slow decline. Contrary to popular myth, his voice wasn't the issue. Critics actually praised it in his early talkies. Instead, it was a mixture of shifting tastes, studio politics, and a system that often demanded conformity. Some rumors suggest that pressure to present a more conventional public image, including marriage, clashed with Novaro's private life, making him a less bankable star in the eyes of studio executives. By the 1940s, his screen appearances had dwindled, and so had his income. The Laurel Canyon mansion, once a hub for artists and intellectuals, reportedly became difficult to maintain. While the exact timeline of its sale remains murky, speculation points to mounting financial strain as a likely reason Novaro let it go. Some even whisper that unpaid taxes and personal debts may have played a role. The final chapter was nothing short of tragic. On October 30th, 1968, Novaro was found dead in his North Hollywood home, the victim of a violent attack. The perpetrators, two brothers, reportedly believed he had hidden wealth stashed inside, a grim echo of his once lavish lifestyle. The trial that followed painted a picture of a man long removed from the spotlight, living in isolation. Novaro's fall wasn't just a career downturn, it was a cautionary tale of how quickly Hollywood's golden sheen can fade. His once grand mansion, now a historic landmark, quietly marks the rise and decline of a silent film icon. Errol Flynn. By the late 1930s, Errol Flynn had established himself as the era's definitive swashbuckler thanks to hits like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. With fame came wealth, and a grand 7-acre property perched along Mulholland Drive. The mansion quickly earned a notorious reputation, with rumors swirling about secret tunnels, mirrored ceilings, and parties that stretched into the early hours. Some tabloids even dubbed it the House of Scandal. Biographer Charles Hyam described the property as a code playground for Flynn's indulgences, gambling, alcohol, and a non-stop rotation of guests. But the good times came at a steep price. In 1943, Flynn faced a highly publicized trial on serious charges. Though acquitted, the scandal inflicted lasting damage on his public image. By the 1950s, his career was in decline. Studios backed away, the IRS came knocking, and legal fees piled up. Desperate to stay afloat, Flynn sold the Mulholland Mansion around 1959. That same year, on October 14th, he died in Vancouver at the age of 50. At the time of his death, his estate was reportedly worth only $10,000, with no real property listed. Some lore suggests that Flynn's downfall wasn't just financial. It was the cost of trying to live as large as the roles he played. Clara Bau. By 1927, Clara Bau was the face of Hollywood's silent era. Dubbed the original It Girl, after her breakout performance in It, she became a cultural phenomenon, earning up to $10,000 a week at her peak and buying an opulent Spanish-style mansion in Beverly Hills. The estate, adorned with Art Deco furnishings and a garage full of luxury cars, stood as a monument to her meteoric rise from Brooklyn poverty to global fame. But when talkies arrived, Bau's thick Brooklyn accent became an issue. Audiences were divided, and studios that once courted her began to retreat. While she managed a few successful sound films like The Wild Party in 1929, the transition exposed vulnerabilities that silent film had masked. Beneath the surface, matters were falling apart. In 1931, she suffered a mental health crisis and was briefly hospitalized. That same year, she married Western actor Rex Bell. Financial troubles soon followed. A high-profile legal battle with her former secretary, Daisy DeVoe, in the early 1930s revealed personal letters, extravagant spending habits, and rumors of extensive gambling. The scandal tarnished her reputation and drained her finances. Although Bell pursued business ventures, including a Nevada ranch and later a political career, the couple's income never matched their expenses. Some speculate that Bau's growing anxiety and Bell's questionable investments only deepened the spiral. By the mid-1930s, Bau sold her Beverly Hills mansion and retreated with Bell to a modest home near Searchlight, Nevada. While she gradually withdrew from public life, calling it complete seclusion may be a stretch. She occasionally resurfaced, but largely stayed out of the spotlight. Stories suggest the mansion's sale epitomized more than financial decline. It marked the industry's harsh tendency to discard icons at their first misstep. Once the queen of the silver screen, Clara Bau faded into obscurity, leaving behind only whispers of a glittering past. Buster Keaton. By the late 1920s, Buster Keaton was a silent film icon with a mansion in Beverly Hills and a reputation as one of the industry's most inventive talents. But in 1928, his decision to sign with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer marked a turning point. The deal stripped him of creative control and placed him under a studio system that didn't grasp his brand of physical comedy. Critics noticed the shift. His trademark deadpan style was dulled, and audiences began to drift. During his peak success, Keaton had purchased an opulent estate rumored to span 10 acres, complete with tennis courts and a grand pool. However, by 1932 that vision collapsed. His divorce from actress Natalie Talmadge, part of the prominent Talmadge family, resulted in the loss of his home and a significant portion of his wealth. Gossip claims Talmadge not only obtained the house in the settlement but also restricted Keaton's contact with their children, an emotional blow that lined up with his escalating difficulties. Keaton's private life was crumbling precisely as his career was faltering. His drinking, which had intensified during the MGM era, became a serious issue in the early 1930s. Studios grew uneasy. Various reports claim he was quietly blacklisted from high-profile productions, reduced to uncredited writing assignments or smaller roles merely to keep going. Anecdotes hint that he spent a period residing in a guest house owned by his in-laws, a startling drop from the palatial home he once called his own. By the close of the decade, Keaton's name had grown into a cautionary lesson in industry circles. A pioneering genius undone by a poor contract, a harsh divorce, and the unforgiving weight of stardom. His story stands as one of the most dramatic reminders of how swiftly a showbiz empire can implode when personal upheaval converges with studio politics. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford's Brentwood mansion once loomed as a radiant symbol of her dominance during the film industry's golden era. Purchased during her peak years at MGM in the early 1930s, the estate was famously extravagant, complete with custom interiors and, according to biographer David Brett, an ever-rotating cast of contractors on standby for constant renovations. But by 1955 the house was gone, not demolished but sold, not in a fire sale but as part of a strategic shift. Crawford married Pepsi-Cola executive Alfred Steele in 1955, and soon after relocated to New York, where she assumed a high-profile role with the company. Some suspected the move was motivated by finance, citing declining film offers and a fading studio system. Others pointed to her ambition to reinvent herself beyond the silver screen. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. Crawford wasn't broke, but the lucrative contracts of the past were drying up. And while she did continue acting, including a stint in television and cult horror films, the Brentwood chapter was closed. The mansion's legacy took a darker turn in 1978, when her adopted daughter Christina released the explosive memoir Mommy Dearest. The book painted the Brentwood home as a place of fear and control, igniting debate across the industry. Some former colleagues rushed to Crawford's defense while others kept their distance. Whether the mansion was a dream home or a gilded cage remains a matter of perspective, but its fall from grace became a lasting emblem of the industry's relentless cycle of rise and retreat. George Raft. George Raft didn't just play gangsters, he knew them. By the mid-1930s, Raft was one of the era's most marketable tough guys, thanks to hits like Scarface and Each Dawn I Die. But as his star rose, so did scrutiny over his real-life friendships with notorious underworld figures. Rumors swirled that his Beverly Hills mansion, acquired during the late 1930s, became a frequent gathering spot for infamous names like Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky. Whether those meetings actually happened behind closed doors remains a mystery, but federal agents were reportedly paying attention. Raft was never indicted, but his reputation took a hit. Casting directors grew wary. Some film historians argue that his off-screen associations cost him major roles, including the lead in Casablanca, which ultimately launched Humphrey Bogart to legend status. Another missed opportunity, Double Indemnity. Raft allegedly passed on the role of Walter Neff, reportedly uneasy about portraying a morally compromised character. Others suspect he simply undervalued the script's potential. Either way, the pattern was there. Raft kept turning down prime parts while Hollywood moved on. Behind the scenes, his finances were collapsing. Known for high-stakes gambling and an open wallet policy with friends, many of whom had questionable ties, Raft struggled to keep his fortune intact. Tax problems piled up. By the early 1960s, the IRS seized his Beverly Hills home over unpaid debts, marking a dramatic fall from grace. He later took a job as a greeter at the Capri Hotel in Las Vegas, a far cry from his days as a leading man. Some speculate that Raft's downfall wasn't just about money, it was about loyalty. Loyalty to the wrong people in an industry that thrived on reinvention. Others point to the shadow of his gangster persona, which may have blurred the line between character and reality. Either way, the loss of his mansion wasn't just a financial blow. It signaled the collapse of a Hollywood image built on danger, charm, and the wrong kind of connections. Gene Tierney. By the mid-1940s, Gene Tierney was one of Hollywood's most luminous stars, fresh off her Oscar-nominated role in Leave Her to Heaven. Around that time, she acquired a cliffside Malibu mansion, an oceanfront symbol of her rapid ascent. But behind the camera flashes and red carpet smiles, Tierney was quietly grappling with severe mental health challenges. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder, she underwent multiple institutionalizations during the 1950s, including treatment at the Menninger Clinic in Kansas. Her autobiography later revealed she endured electroconvulsive therapy and extended hospital stays, treatments that sidelined her career and drained her finances. By the late 1950s, the financial strain reportedly forced her to sell her Malibu home. Hollywood's harsh stigma around mental illness at the time only deepened her isolation. Some biographers suggest the pressure to maintain a flawless public image may have intensified her condition. Though she staged a modest return in the early 1960s with films like Advise and Consent, the momentum of her earlier stardom had largely faded. Tierney's story remains a stark reminder of how fame, untreated illness, and public scrutiny collided, leaving even the most glamorous stars vulnerable to losing everything, including the homes that once defined their success. John Barrymore. By the early 1930s, John Barrymore's legendary run as one of Hollywood's most magnetic stars was already slipping. Known as the Great Profile, Barrymore had captivated audiences with his stage work, most notably in a 1922 Broadway production of Hamlet, and became a screen icon in silent films and early talkies like Grand Hotel. But while his face remained etched in movie history, his personal life was unraveling fast. Years of alcohol dependence had begun to erode his memory and reliability on set, forcing studios to think twice about casting him. Rumors swirled that directors had to shoot around his unpredictable behavior, and some crew members quietly referred to him as a ticking clock. At the height of his career, Barrymore purchased Bella Vista, a lavish Beverly Hills estate complete with a private theater, imported art, and manicured gardens. But by the mid-1930s, the mansion had become more of a burden than a trophy. His income had dried up, roles were scarce, and debts were mounting. In a desperate bid to stay afloat, Barrymore began selling off the estate's prized possessions. According to the Los Angeles Times, the contents of the estate were auctioned in late 1936, drawing collectors and curious onlookers who hoped to grab a piece of fallen royalty. By early 1937, the estate was gone, sold to cover outstanding debts. Barrymore moved into a modest rental in Hollywood, a far cry from the grandeur he once commanded. Many believe the loss of his beloved estate dealt a psychological blow he never fully recovered from. His final years were marked by declining health, scattered film appearance, and increasing isolation, ending with his death on May 29, 1942, from complications tied to cirrhosis. Barrymore's fall became an enduring Hollywood parable. His mansion, once a symbol of creative triumph, now lingers in industry memory as a cautionary monument to unchecked indulgence. As film historian David Thompson once noted, Barrymore was a brilliant actor who could never quite play the role of himself off stage. James Kagny. By the mid-1950s, James Kagny, once the undisputed king of Hollywood gangster films, was quietly battling a different kind of enemy, the Internal Revenue Service. After years of dominating the screen in hits like The Public Enemy and Yankee Doodle Dandy, Kagny found himself under federal audit. In 1955, rumors swirled that the IRS had uncovered several years of underreported income. The exact amount was never disclosed, but the fallout was immediate. In 1956, Kagny sold his sprawling Coldwater Canyon estate, a 100-acre property that included a horse ranch, avocado groves, and multiple guest houses. more than just real estate. The estate had symbolized his hard-won independence after years of clashing with studio executives. According to biographer John McCabe, Kagny later called the ordeal the most humiliating experience of his life. There's talk that his unwillingness to play the Hollywood game, or his habit of relying on a tight-knit circle to manage his finances, may have made him a target. True or not, it marked a rare defeat for one of cinema's most unshakable tough guys. Anthony Quinn. By the mid-1960s, Anthony Quinn was riding high as one of Hollywood's most decorated actors, with 2 Academy Awards under his belt for Viva Zapata in 1952 and Lust for Life in 1956. But while his performances lit up the screen, his finances were far less stable. In Bel Air, Quinn invested heavily in a sprawling estate, reportedly designed to reflect both his artistic passions and growing celebrity. The property was said to include custom-built studios and expansive grounds, an ambitious project that rapidly ballooned in cost. To keep the dream alive, he allegedly relied on a patchwork of loans, some rumored to carry punishing interest rates. Then came a turning point in 1965, his divorce from Catherine DeMille. The settlement forced Quinn to liquidate assets, and the estate, once a monument to his success, was broken up and sold. Some of his personal artworks, long tied to his identity as a painter and sculptor, were auctioned off during this period. Legends tease that Quinn's downfall wasn't just financial. It was a collision between ego, art, and the brutal economics of stardom. He later admitted in interviews that ambition had clouded his judgment, a rare moment of candor from a man who once seemed untouchable on screen. Spencer Tracy. During the height of his stardom, Spencer Tracy was a fixture of Hollywood's golden age. 2 Academy Awards, a decades-long contract with MGM, and a reputation for reliability on screen. But off-camera, his personal finances told a different story. Tracy maintained 2 households, one with his estranged wife, Louise Treadwell, and another kept discreetly for his longtime companion, Katharine Hepburn. While the studio system shielded much of his private life, the cost of this dual existence reportedly strained his finances. By the late 1950s, Tracy's health had sharply declined. He battled diabetes, heart issues, and recurring respiratory problems, all of which required expensive treatment. According to biographer James Curtis, his dependence on alcohol worsened during this period, further complicating both his health and his wallet. In 1959, Tracy quietly sold his expansive Encino estate, a property he had owned since the early 1940s. The sale surprised close friends and sparked speculation that he was teetering on the edge of foreclosure. Others wonder if the emotional toll of leading a double life, publicly married, privately committed, played a role in his financial unraveling. Others point to mounting medical bills and a fading career as the real culprits. Whatever the truth, the sale of the Encino home marked a turning point. A symbol of Hollywood success traded in for privacy, practicality, and perhaps a measure of peace. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.